But let's be clear. I mean it sincerely. I was raised by my best friend in the world, my sister. She anyway, won't get into all that, but, I mean it sincerely. A woman can do anything a man can do.
He was raised by his sister now. Was she Puerto Rican? Was she the Puerto Rican one? Was she the Jewish one? What state was she in when your sister was raising you? What happened to all those stories about your father and everybody else? That's Joe Biden. He did appear today for just a moment at the White House to demonstrate his confusion. Kind of amusing because he, over the weekend, while pretending to be president of the United States for just a few minutes at the White House, was meeting with the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi. And if I were standing there and I looked over my shoulder and I saw Prime Minister Modi standing there with his turban on and his beard and all that good stuff, I'd say, hey, there's Prime Minister Modi. And I wouldn't even have to, have invited him or anything like that, but pretty amazing stuff. I would say, hey, there's Prime Minister Modi. Whoa, hey, what are you doing here? I might say something like that. But Joe Biden, his brain just doesn't go there. His brain doesn't work at all. Joe Biden, the headline out of India, Joe Biden hosts PM Narendra Modi at home. It says at home, meaning at the White House. More dynamic than ever. It said this is what the ties closer, more dynamic than ever. This is, I'm reading from the Indian Express, a newspaper out of India, the subcontinent, the empire. Prime Minister Modi, each time we sit down, I am struck by your ability to find new areas of cooperation. Today was no different, Joe Biden said. But that was after his people got to him, because here's Joe Biden at the White House. And the Prime Minister of India is standing next to him, the world's second most populous nation, maybe even the most populous nation. And there's the Prime Minister standing there just a few feet over here waiting to be introduced. Joe Biden is at the presidential podium, and he had no idea who was standing there and no idea who he was supposed to be introducing. And then somebody, a woman off to the side, who was doing the sound, the color commentary, and now the flag, and the woman standing up the side doing announcements. Joe Biden is angrily, and he's scowling and growling, and he has a furrowed brow, which is hard after all the surgery he's had done to his forehead and his eyes and his eyebrows. But here's Joe Biden not knowing who the Prime Minister of India was on Saturday, just standing next to him. Quite remarkable.
So I want to thank you all for being here. And now, who am I introducing next?
Who? He's looking around.
Who's next?
He's angry. He doesn't know.
Distinguished guests, the Prime Minister of the Republic of India.
Somebody had to jump in. The lady had to jump in and say, the lady there, a nice young woman, probably military, maybe civilian, doing it. It's like, wait, the president has no idea that the Prime Minister of India is standing next to him and that his name is Modi and the Prime Minister Modi, Narendra Modi, and he can't do it. So, man, oh, man. Actually, a Sunday meeting with the Prime Minister. And Joe Biden is so not up to the task of being president. And this is what some of us have been saying for years now. And the news media has been lying, and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, they've been lying about it and lying about it. No, he's fine. His brain is just fine. Don't worry about him. Everything is good. Just amazing stuff. You're a Democrat party. They are unwell, very, very unwell. Joe Biden is unwell. And then their fallback, their backup quarterback, is Kamala Harris, who is no great shakes intellectually, no great shakes mentally. She is no good either. Just amazing. Amazing. Man, oh, man. All right, let's take one more phone call, Michael. Let's go to the phones again. And I have more audio to share with you. This is our third and final hour this morning. But let's go to the phones. Let's go to Mike calling from South Riding, Virginia. Michael, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Chris. Good morning. First of all, I think when in the Indian newspaper said Biden met him at home, he literally met him at Biden's Wilmington mansion. There were 4 leaders that met there over the weekend. The reason I called is you're talking about Panetta and the Intel community. I spent 35 years in the Intel community, and when I started in the mid-'80s, I can tell you that from the mid-'80s to when I retired a few years ago, it's gotten more and more and more left, okay? Under Reagan, everybody was, pro-U.S., conservative. Now it's anti-U.S., anti-Israel, and pretty much leftist, if not socialist communist. And the State Department, of course, has been anti-Israel, anti-U.S. since probably the mid to late 60s, and it's probably not any better. Excuse me. And the reason, I think, is because, don't forget, the Democrat Party started taking over the U.S. public education system in probably the mid to late 80s, and it took them 10 years to get pretty much established. And so by the mid-90s, from K through 12, they were cranking out little leftists every year, graduating them. And then once they got out of the public education system, they went into universities and colleges, which, of course, they're being taught by leftists. So when they graduate, the government hires kids out of college, and guess what? They're leftists. And the government, I've had friends who've retired from commerce and labor, and they've told me the same thing, that when they left, they couldn't believe how their departments have become so left. And I'm sure the rest of the federal government's the same way.
Yeah, and, there's a headline today, and thank you for the Biden home thing, because it's true. And I watched the video, and for some reason I thought it was the White House. His house must be big and white in Delaware. But you are correct. It was at the home in Delaware, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And thanks for 35 years in the intelligence community, starting during the Reagan years when, as you said, back when we were on our side. Great stuff. And, Barack Obama, who was mentored by Frank Marshall Davis, a literal card-carrying member of the Communist Party, Barack Obama, the biggest leftist we've ever had as president, assuming Kamala doesn't ascend to the White House, which would be tragic for all of humanity. But he made John Brennan, who literally voted for the Communist Party candidate for president of the United States, Gus Hall, the Communist Party, and Barack Obama made John Brennan the CIA director, right? And then you must have watched in horror, Mike, as the intelligence community, John Brennan being one of the 51 signatories to that corrupt intelligence letter, and they tampered in our election, right? The way that we're supposed to tamper in elections in third world countries to make sure the commies and the totalitarians don't get into power. But they corrupted our presidential election, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I have no hope of Trump winning in November, because I think that the Democrats want complete and total control, and they see their chance this November. And I know I'm a firm believer they stole 2020, and I know there's about a 1% chance it's going to be a fair election. Don't be shocked if we're not going to know the results till probably Saturday or Sunday after the election, if not the middle of the following week. But guess what? It's just the votes are going to trickle in and trickle in and trickle in, and by the end, Kamala Harris will have won, because the Democrats know how to steal elections. They've been doing that since the 1880s, and this is what happens when you vote Democrat. You keep voting people in, the same people over and over and over again, and they get the mindset that, hey, we can rule over you, and this is, I'm sad to say, but I think the country, by mid-November, there will be, not until 20 January, actually, the United States, as we've known it, will no longer exist, especially if the Dems take control of the House and keep the Senate, and Harris wins.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, we're in very, very deep. And, Mike, you've probably seen this too, but the New York Times very excited to announce in their headline, more than 700 current and former national security officials back Harris.
Of course, because guess what? They're leftists. And I'll be honest with you, and I'm probably going to, you may get calls on this, but any organization, which is, of course, composed of human beings, you've got people who are devoted to the mission or getting the job done, in other words, and other people who see, their position as just another means or as a way to get to the next level. And I've seen a lot of political whores in my career, and if the boss is a communist, well, by God, I'm going to be a communist, because that's the way I'm going to get, good performance reviews and performance awards and promotions.
This 700, here's the headline at Newsweek magazine. Trump branded, quote, unfit, end quote, as 700 security officials back Kamala Harris. So these lefties, they're great little community organizers. That's how I was talking about this during Occupy Wall Street. It's the left organizing and getting their mailing list together and finding out who's willing to sleep in their own feces in parks for months on end, and then which ones are willing to be violent, and they organize the violent wing of the black shirts, the brown shirts. People always forget about the black shirts. Mussolini's version of the black of the brown shirts. I don't think they should be overlooked. But the national security leaders, this is the Newsweek story from America, released a statement endorsing Harris on Sunday. Now, that is extraordinary stuff. A group of former national security leaders have formally endorsed Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris, describing her opponent, Donald Trump, as, quote, impulsive, ill-informed, and unfit. Really? Ask all the dead people in the Middle East and the dead people in Russia and Ukraine, and ask all the dead people in Chicago, and ask all the people murdered by the Venezuelan gang members, and the 5 children in Maryland whose mother was raped and murdered by a Venezuelan gang member, and the women dragged down the streets of New York City by Venezuelan gang members on stolen scooters, and more crime, more mayhem, more carjackings, more rape, more murder, more Democrats means all of those things, right, Mike?
Right. Yeah, well, I tell people, if you're stupid enough to vote Democrat, you deserve your misery.
Yeah, but the rest of us don't.
No, and the rest of us don't, but unfortunately, when the Democrats control the ballot boxes, this is what happens.
Yeah, now 35 years for you in U.S. intelligence. You were involved in foreign operations?
No, I was an analyst.
Analyst, okay. And, you touch on all that stuff, and you see what's going on. You smell the coffee every day. And it's an amazing time we're in, Michael, isn't it?
Yeah, and I tell you, the Israelis, you got to love them.
Gotta love them.
I mean, ever since the '67 war. I mean, I was only about 10 or 11 years old then, but you gotta love them. I mean, I don't think we could have pulled off what they just did.
We were having that conversation today. I was having a conversation with a colleague today, and I don't believe that we could have pulled that off. I don't think we have the discipline. I don't think we have the long-term thinking, a 6-year-long operation. And the goal in the end is to drive all the leadership into one room and drop a bomb on it. Isn't that amazing? Cut off all
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Cut off all their means of communication until they have to meet in person. Then you drop a satellite-guided bomb into their hummus. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Well, when you when you cut off an enemy's electronic communications, they're forced to use runners, and that slows operations down.
Yeah.
Because you can't have like a conference call,
Right.
where everybody gets together on the phone and says, "Hey, let's do this," and okay, well, so and so, you take care of this, and blah 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 blah. Now it's like, well, go to this guy and tell him he needs to do this, and then after that you go to this guy, tell him he needs to do that, and whatever, and so on down the line.
Yeah.
And I mean, they could probably use different runners, to go to A, B, and C at the same time, but it still slows things down.
And it's jobs for the kids, they get to learn on the. It's Michael. Thank you very much. Saluting you, my friend. Thanks for the call. I'm concerned as you are about the upcoming election and whether the system has been so corrupted. Mail out ballots and blue surgical gloves and drop boxes and cover of darkness and registering non-citizens to vote and illegal aliens to vote. It's total gangsterism. These people aren't liberals. They are the left.
It's not often where you can move the arc of history. Don't let that chance slip away.
Here's the headline at the Los Angeles Times. I was talking about the left being a death cult. They hate humanity. At the Democratic National Convention, people lined up to have vasectomies done in a van because the men just can't wait to cut their gonads off. And also they were giving abortions, free abortions, because they want to exterminate humanity. They're the left. They murdered 100 million people in the last century in the name of utopia. Here's the headline at the Los Angeles Times today. Quote, and this is the headline in quotation marks, "It's almost shameful to want to have children." Sure, and Jade Sasser has the story. She, I guess a woman, hard to say, might have a penis and be named Jade for all we know. Associate professor, the Department of Gender and Sexuality Studies at UC Riverside. Nobody wants to go to UC Riverside. And the kid question, it comes up over and over again in the form of family questions and expectations. It arises in conversations with peers. No, it doesn't. Partners and new dates. Jade has a lot of new dates, and they talk about, kids. But at the Los Angeles Times, they're talking Gen Z and Gen this and Gen that. It's almost shameful to want to have children. Almost. I guess maybe almost would be the key word there. They're anti-humanity. They're not on the side of humanity. They will extinguish humanity. They're on the side of Hamas and Hezbollah and the Ayatollahs. They're not on our side.
And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. Is it okay to still have children? And also just this basic moral question, like, what do we do?
That's AOC wrestling with the moral question of having children. We can certainly hope and pray that she doesn't. The world would be a better place if AOC never had children, wouldn't it? But the Los Angeles Times today, "It's almost shameful to want to have children." That's the headline. They've got a big color picture of what they say is a 7-year-old girl, Nina Gomez, recovers a discarded plastic bag from the ocean near Copacabana Beach in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The young environmental activist collects trash and teaches conservation methods to other children. She's a 7-year-old girl, and she has a long-sleeve garment on, swimming in the ocean off of Copacabana Beach. And she grabbed the bag, and then she was pulled to the bottom of the ocean, where she tragically died, but that reduced her carbon footprint. So the Democrats are okay with that. There were more than 1 million abortions last year, and the Democrats say that's not nearly enough. We had the highest number of abortions last year in the United States in more than 10 years. keep in mind that they were in a flop sweat panic and self-immolating all over the place because Roe v. Wade was overturned. And then they just getting your face about it, well over 1 million abortions the year after Roe v. Wade was overturned. Isn't that amazing? But they have this death cult. They are a death cult. And they do have suicide attackers. They've had mass murdering suicide attackers in Dallas and in Baton Rouge, double homicide suicide attack in New York City on police officers, of course, suicide attack on police, Capitol Hill, murdered officers, Ramos and Luz, suicide attack in New York, murdered U.S. Capitol Police officer Billy Evans, on Capitol Hill, right at the Capitol in a suicide attack. Democrats self-immolated at the Supreme Court, at the Israeli embassy, at the Israeli facility, the consulate in Atlanta, the Israeli consulate in Boston just about 2 weeks ago. Didn't even make news. Self-immolated. Doesn't even make news anymore. So many Democrats. I believe that a total of 6 Buddhist monks self-immolated during the 15, 16 years of the Vietnam War. 5 Democrats have self-immolated in the United States in the last 2 years, going back to Earth Day, so it might be 26 months. Isn't that amazing? And the Democrats, they one of their secular apocalypse is climate change, global warming. And remember, the Washington Post reported ominously today that the projected temperature is 73 degrees today in Washington, but it will feel like 74 degrees, maybe just 73.5 degrees. But naturally, all of this death cultiness reminds us of Katie Porter, Congresswoman Katie Porter, who is raising a little girl and telling her little girl that she doesn't have long to live because while it's 73 degrees today, it's going to feel like 74.
I told my 9-year-old daughter that I was going to be speaking with you, and I said, what do you think about climate change? And she said, the earth is on fire, and we're all going to die soon. And I asked her how that made her feel, and she said it made her feel angry.
Angry, that means it makes her feel good because, the lefties, they love to be angry. Isn't that amazing? They're raising their children on a diet of genocidal hatred of Jews. Even if they're Jews, they're raising them on genocidal hatred of Jews. From the river to the sea. It was a funny meme last week, from the liver to the knee. From the liver to the knee, because that's where all the pagers were blowing up. Pretty funny stuff. And let's not forget Greta von Thunberg, because Greta Thunberg is a hero of the Democrat Party. And she is a brainwashed little glassy-eyed zombie, and that's fine because the Democrats like it that way. But Greta Thunberg, who's been, flying around on private jets and taking $8 million yachts to go and preach the lunacy of the just amazing stuff. But now, because she's with the left, and the Democrat Party in the United States represents the left, but Greta von Thunberg was out over the weekend draped in a Palestinian headdress, the black and white Palestinian headdress, and she's leading the anti-Israel demonstration in Stockholm, Sweden. Such a beautiful city, such a wonderful country, but the left is here, and they are here to destroy the world. Greta von Thunberg with a microphone, walking behind a big Volkswagen pickup truck. Hitler loved Volkswagens. So you got to build in the Hitler thing to everything, right? And the Volkswagen and the Kubelwagen and the Schwimmenwagen. My favorite was the Schwimmenwagen. That was the amphibious Volkswagen, right? The People's Wagen. And funny stuff. But here's Greta with a big pickup truck in front of her, Volkswagen, just as Hitler would have it, with big speakers bigger than her. She's got a microphone. She's wearing a Palestinian headdress.
Show me what the people looks like. Show me what power looks like. Show me what democracy looks like.
I'll show you what democracy looks like.
Show me what democracy looks like.
She's reading from her iPhone because she can't remember "Show me what democracy looks like." And there are glassy-eyed zombies with Palestinian flags. There's a Ukrainian flag there, too, because they want the war that never ends. Because I can see why Swedish people might want to wipe out Russia. But, yeah, so there's Greta with lots of... They've got... and there are such mental cases. They have Palestinian flags and transgender flags. I'll go over there and give them a ride to the Gaza in my car and drop them off. This glassy-eyed fanatic that has been brainwashed into loony land in Stockholm, Sweden. And then the news media is reporting Greta Thunberg condemns, quote, genocide, end quote, in Palestine during Stockholm protest. She condemns genocide. She's supporting genocide. No sense of irony, these people. And I'm sorry that it's left to me to point all this stuff out. But the irony, I've been saying forever now, they have no sense of irony. And they're condemning Israel for genocide when Israel is the target of the genocidal mass murderers. And they're supporting the genocidal mass murderers in the name of opposing genocide. And that is normal all over the world now. Truly amazing times we are in. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I'm telling you. So we got that. The LA Times, it's the moral corruption of having children. Katie Porter, Democrat congresswoman, I think she's on her way out. I think she lost in her primary, right? And she's on the way out, but she's teaching her then 9-year-old girl that the earth is on fire and we're all going to die soon. That's what they do in the Gaza to convince people to become suicide bombers. But that's okay because the Democrats are, again, how many suicide attacks have we had here? New York, Dallas, Baton Rouge, Washington, D.C., all against police. We've had 5 Democrat self-immolations, Washington, D.C., 3 Israeli, the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. on Earth Day because he was upset about climate change, so he self-immolated and put his own smoke into the air. Pretty amazing stuff. He vaped himself. Just amazing. The Democrat Party. Yes, sir.
The earth is on fire, and we're all going to die soon.
You know, some days I almost hope so. Isn't that amazing? Silly Times and Greta and Katie Porter. The Democrats are a mental illness. Being a Democrat is it's not a sign of a mental. We need to identify it as a mental illness right now. And you people shouldn't be allowed to vote, among other things. Certainly shouldn't be allowed to possess firearms and probably shouldn't be allowed to purchase gasoline in 1-gallon containers or 2-gallon containers. Isn't that amazing? Shouldn't be allowed to buy Zippo lighters either. But remember, today it's going to be 73 degrees in Washington, but it's going to feel like 74 degrees. Just amazing. Your jihad. Yes, sir. Man, oh, man. All right, we should grab another phone call. Let's go to line 1, Chris, calling from Elgin, Illinois. Christopher, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning. It's actually Christine.
It's Christine. Fine. My apologies.
No, you can call me Chris.
I'm going to write Christine down right here.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I am calling because I saw in the headlines that the Venezuelan gangs are taking over the street gangs in Chicago, and I have a very warm feelings for Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities. It was a great city once. And so my question for you is, do you think this is a feature or a bug to have the Venezuelan gangs fighting the Chicago street gangs because they're threatening it's going to be like things are going to set on fire, the city's going to be destroyed? And it just seems like they've been on this trajectory of self-immolation as a city. So I just wanted your thoughts on that.
Well, this is honestly something that I talk about fairly frequently. Barack Obama, when he was president for 8 years, promised, you may recall, the fundamental transformation of America.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
And they all cheer and they go wild, and then they burn some police cars and some of them self-immolated. And you may also remember that Barack Obama warned us that we better learn to speak Spanish.
Instead of worrying about whether immigrants can learn English, they'll learn English. You need to make sure your child can speak Spanish.
Woo, and woo. This is, honestly, Christine, I think this is a part of the macro plan of the left to drown the United States, America, make it unrecognizable. And, you got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. saying that his father and his uncle would find today's Democrat Party unrecognizable. They're turning us into, they're hostile to white people. They're hostile to what they call the patriarchy. They have contempt for our Constitution or our Bill of Rights. All of their instincts are authoritarian. And when it comes to the Venezuelan gangs moving in on the Chicago gangs and the, Peastone Nation, all the Chicago gangs, I'm rooting for the Chicago gangs here, right? I mean, what do you do, Christine? I guess you root for the Chicago gangs, although it does remind me, I was trading texts with a friend of mine in Chicago about this over the weekend with Vince. And I said it's a little like the Iran-Iraq war, though, right?
Yeah, I know. But, I'm just thinking, Brandon is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, and neither is JB, the governor. And I'm just thinking, do you guys not see that you're shooting yourselves in the foot, or does that not matter? I just don't get it.
Yeah, I really don't think they care. The mayor, Brandon Johnson, who is just a complete loser, and J.B. Pritzker, the billionaire who bought the governor's mansion. Most Illinois governors end up in prison after their time in the governor's mansion, so we can hope that J.B. Pritzker ends up following in that tradition, in the footsteps of his predecessors. But I, too, and my friend Vince, again, was sending me stuff about the Venezuelan gangs in Chicago in turf wars with the local Chicago gangs, and I'll take the Chicago gangs anytime.
Absolutely.
American and English-speaking and all of that good stuff. And, just amazing what the Democrats are doing to the country. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I ask you one other quick question?
Certainly.
I wanted to know if you have seen the old 70s movie, The Day of the Jackal.
Oh, sure,
It is about, it has been eerily reminiscent when I've listened to the things about Thomas Crooks, the way they disposed of his body, and the connection there. If you haven't seen that movie, you might want to see it again because it is really scary similar.
It is a really fun movie, a very good movie, and is it Michael Fox or James Fox, one of the Foxes?
Yeah, one of the Foxes.
And a wonderful movie about the attempted assassination of Charles de Gaulle, and it's based on a true story.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Edward Fox. I just looked it up real quick.
Fox, that's it.
The attempted assassination of Charles de Gaulle. Charles de Gaulle. They named an airport after him. And you're right, Crooks, and then he gets shot by the Secret Service, and we have no faith and confidence in our public institutions and our government institutions and agencies and departments, and we are really on the ropes. We are drowning here, Christine.
Yeah, when I heard that they cremated his body, I thought, oh my gosh, because they buried the jackal in the movie in an unmarked grave, and they just basically buried the story. And I thought, oh my goodness, have they seen this movie?
Honestly, and again, it is it's based very much on a true story. A really fun movie, 1973. I'm glad you reminded me of it. I might have to go look it up. Christine, you're wonderful. We'll keep fighting the fight and try to keep our nation's head above water. Thank you, Christine. You know that football season is here. It's football season. There are two Monday night football games tonight because, you just want to kind of wreck everything. And with Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action while you're watching football. The app is incredibly simple to use, easy to use. You pick two or more players And you pick more or less on their projections, and you could win up to 100 times your money. And all the withdrawals are safe and fast and secure. Not only that, but Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy app with injury insurance. Anybody else have injury insurance? No. If one of your players goes down in the first half, Prize Picks does not count it as a loss against you. So download the Prize Picks app today. And when you use the code PLANTE, P-L-A-N-T-E, you're going to get a $50 credit instantly when you play $5. $5, $50 credit. You're welcome. It's great. The code is PLANT on Prize Picks to get a $50 credit instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to get your $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Must be present in certain states to play. Visit prizepicks.com for details and restrictions. Yes, sir. Yeah, why is it that there are people out there in the world like Christine, just wonderful, calling from Illinois, that know what's going on, like Mike, the career intelligence officer, and still we're drowning out here as a nation, as a culture, as a civilization. It's 476 A.D., and the left is in charge. The court of Caligula has risen from the grave. Well, so much I couldn't get to. I mentioned Janet Jackson saying that Kamala Harris really isn't white, but I may have to pick that up tomorrow. Right now, let's go to the phones. Let's go to Sam, calling from Ashburn, Virginia. Sam, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, it's a great honor to talk to you. I've been listening to you for 15 years. I have to tell you that you are the most hysterically funny guy on the WMAL lineup. There have been a couple of instances when I have been driving, and your references to pop culture when you talk about it during your talk show is just incredible. I'm very pleased to know that I get all of the stuff that you say. In fact, like I said, a couple of times I was laughing so hard while I was driving. I was convulsing with laughter, and I had to pull over to the side of the road.
Well, I want you to drive carefully and be judicious at all times, Sam.